Hello and Happy New Year from Matt and Mike Pull Focus. I'm Mike.
And I'm not.
And it wouldn't be tradition, Matt, if we didn't make the first episode of 2021 about what great films we saw in 2020, even if the cinemas weren't open for most of it. So me and Matt have compiled our list of top 5 films, but there seems to be some overlap because there were very limited amount of films that got released to our viewing eyes last year. Yeah. So
two movies released last year.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought we'd kick off talking about So The Lighthouse. This was one of the most uncomfortable times that I have spent in a cinema watching a film, in the past about 5 years, probably since Hereditary. I haven't been more uncomfortable watching a film. What did you think of the film?
Absolutely loved it. I mean, it was just my perfect type of film, all mood, all ambience, an amazing soundtrack and sound effects, horror, sort of the ultimate psychological horror, but also kind of weirdly relatable to anyone who's ever had a hangover as well, or stayed near the sea. So yeah, William Dafoe's performance, it was amazing. Robert Pattinson showing that he might be a good Batman.
Yeah, definitely.
I just absolutely loved it.
No, I agree. I believe they both deserved Oscar nominations for their performances, personally. I thought it was a travesty that they weren't recognised for it in some part, especially Willem Dafoe. I thought that his little tirade when he was starting speaking all kind of Shakespearean and very piratey, it was insane and intense.
Well, their accents were just fantastic. You would have thought on paper they might have been a little bit hammy, but they just pulled it off so well. And the sort of the Pattinson's accent kind of changed throughout it, which was just not in a bad way. Almost like he became a character throughout it. Yeah. And like you said, yeah, I just couldn't keep my eyes off William Dafoe. It was just, he's always like that. It kind of reminded me of his performance as Max Schreck, in Shadow of the Vampire.
Shadow of the Vampire, yeah.
Yeah, I love that film. And, again, he's just completely, as soon as he starts, you just can't, you want to watch him, he's sort of like he's a sort of a wild animal. You got to keep your eye on him.
No, definitely. And the direction by Robert Eggers, I thought was outstanding. It reminded me of why I loved the Witch, and why it was so fantastically haunting. The decision to shoot it all on 35mm print and have a 1.19:1 ratio, making it a nearly square presentation, just added to the weird otherworldly feel to it being such a macabre tale, and it was just presented to us in such a storybook kind of way that, God, it was horrifying by the end.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, the symbolism and the suggestive imagery, I just feel I have seen a second, a third, and a fourth viewing since, and I begin to understand more about the relationship between the two and just how it messes with your mind, with Willem Dafoe saying, "How long have we been here? 2 weeks? 4 months?" And I'm just oh God, I don't actually know. This has sent me for a loop, and it's just absolutely horrible.
It's like addressing the audience almost, and it's how long do you think we've been here?
Exactly.
Are we sort of describing this well enough for you? Yeah. But no, it was brilliant on every level. Like you said, the cinematography, being actually filmed on the obviously on real film, and on location, on real film, and the what was going on screen, the sort of dirt and the grime and the sea salt and it's you could feel it. It's you could really feel what was going on screen.
I needed a shower after I watched it.
Yeah. So it's feeling where you've been to the seaside for the day and you've got kind of salt encrusted in your hair and your face, and that you just think of that for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, with unlimited amounts of moonshine, so whatever the hell they were drinking, motor oil at some points.
Yeah, at some points. But the scene where Willem Dafoe is speaking and he's having the dirt shoveled into his mouth and he's still speaking and giving his little monologue while he's chewing dirt and stuff. I felt so horrible and horrid. I just feel the director, Robert Eggers, along with Ari Aster, Mike Flanagan, Jordan Peele, this is a new renaissance for horror, a resurgence, and I feel I really hope it's going to carry on for a long time.
Yeah, I think starting from I'm going to say Oculus or something about way back when, from in the last, at least the last 6 or 7 years, there's just been countless, it's a total horror renaissance. I think it's probably the Blumhouse thing, the sort of independent horror making lots of money, which is how horror, slasher movies kind of started, all the way from Halloween, Black Christmas, it's very low budget movies appealing to a huge audience.
Yeah.
And I think that's, but also, low budget means less supervision and, more freedom for directors to do what they want to do. And that's always a recipe for success, definitely. I don't understand why, when you look at a movie like the Fan Four Stick or something like that, it failed because it was essentially, like a studio just interfered and just ripped it apart and put it back together in a crappy order.
Yeah.
Maybe if they'd let the director, do what he wanted to do from the start, it might have been a half decent movie, but it just shows interference never works.
Agreed. And speaking of horror, so just from the first opening scene in this, I felt like this was going to be special, and it knew how to mess with my head and to just keep me on the edge of my seat. And all the way through, the director Lee Winnell left purposefully blank space next to a character. I was just automatically thinking, oh, he's there, the Invisible Man's there. It's ridiculous.
That was the best thing about this movie, was the use of the camera, the way it just panned over, and then you just thought to yourself, he's probably not there. You thought to yourself, he's probably not. It's probably just showing you, but the way it kept kind of playing with you and saying he could be here throughout all this exposition, throughout all this, even though she feels completely safe after she's fled the home, you never know whether he's listening, whether he's intervening, what's he doing when the camera's not rolling, he could always be there. There's a scene in this film, I won't spoil it because I guess this is kind of a recommendation podcast, so I don't want to spoil it, but there's a scene with a knife where it was literally one of the most surprising and shocking and unexpected things I've ever seen in a movie, and it was genuinely took me by surprise. It was like the ultimate jump scare, but in the most earned possible way. I watched this movie on my birthday as well this year, and as we know, it's been a really crappy year. So and I had a lovely birthday. I got sushi from my favorite restaurant, booze from my favorite boozer, and watched the film, and it was just such a wonderful day and a great film to go with it. So I've got really good sort of sentimental memories about this film as well as it being a great movie.
Good, I'm glad. I think this was the last film I saw in the cinema. So in the same way, I've got good memories of
you saw this
in the before times. Yeah, it was brilliant.
I'm so jealous.
Absolutely brilliant. And I thought Elizabeth Moss's performance was outstanding. The only experience I had of her was Us, when she appeared in Jordan Peele's Us last year. And I was like, oh, she was really good in that little bit that she's in. But in this, she really can shine. And she really, she accurately depicts a woman going insane through gaslighting. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough.
What I also love about this movie is that it was kind of saved from the precipice of being a huge studio disaster, like we mentioned before, because Universal Studios were kind of going to reboot all of their sort of classic monsters, like the Mummy,
Dark Universe,
Dark Universe, and this was going to be a part of that. And as we know what a huge disaster the Mummy was, and then this was kind of scrapped from being a huge blockbuster movie, and they sort of said, "Does anyone want to do this?" And then is it Lee Winnell?
Lee Winnell,
the director? He spoke up and said, "Yeah, I think I could do this," and they did it for no money or very little money.
No, they saved it.
Made it incredible. Yeah, and
exactly.
We are actually expecting, I think, next year a Wolfman movie starring Ryan Gosling from the same studio. I'm pretty sure. So I'm very excited about that.
But speaking of character dramas that give a lot of time to the performances, so Parasite, I feel, is a worthy winner of the Best Picture Oscar this year. I was so happy to see that it won. It was one of the first South Korean films that I've ever introduced to my family. And because they're not very, well, they are very open-minded, but if they have to have subtitles and something, there's usually some hesitance with it. But my parents just acclimatized to it so quickly and just grabbed onto it, and I feel like it's such a universal story and one that is so easily understandable that it's, I don't know, it's such a tale as old as time in terms of there's the rich, there's the poor, and there's the poor trying to get richer, and that's all you need for this film. And I feel like it's done in such a fantastically whimsical yet understandable and relatable way that I absolutely adored it, and I fell in love with it for the first time I saw it.
Well, I think it's just that, example of, like when you've got a great movie, it doesn't matter if it's in a foreign language or,
Agreed,
it's a great movie is a great movie. But also, we were just talking before in our National Lampoon episode about me sort of believing in that it's possible to overhype things. However, with this movie, it was hyped, to death. Before I saw it very late, and it just lived up and surpassed any of my expectations.
Wow.
So I absolutely loved it. It was brilliant, and it was just one of these movies that just keeps on giving, and it keeps turning and doing different things and like going off in different directions, and it stays fresh, and there's twists and turns and plot diversions and things, and it doesn't get old, it doesn't get tiring, it just keeps giving. And yeah, I just loved it. I didn't want it to end. It was one of those movies that I just thought this could go on, but having said that, it was so brilliantly wrapped up. But I just absolutely loved it, and it's probably the first Korean movie I've ever seen actually.
Now hang on, Old Boy. How could you forget? Second.
I'd forgotten Old Boy was Korean. Sorry, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen it. I forgot Steve McQueen was in it. But yeah, no, I absolutely loved it.
Good. I'm so glad you did too. I think it's best if you don't know anything about this film going into it, because the title kind of made me feel like this was going to be a horror. I felt like it was going to be some kind of body horror where like one of the family was going to get a parasite and have it within them. I don't know if you remember the opening scene, but when like they're folding pizza boxes and like some bug gas gets sprayed into the house.
Yeah.
And like everybody starts coughing apart from the dad. I thought that, there it is. He's got the parasite. And I thought that's the way it was going to go. Not knowing that it's just the fact that the dad's a bit kooky and he doesn't mind a bit of the gas because he's doing some box folding.
He's been used to it.
Yeah, exactly. And like that being a sign of just like how poor they are, that they're used to being gassed to kill bugs.
Casually. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And then when like the house happened and like they started infiltrating, I was like, I completely didn't see this happening. And then, like you say, the diversions, it changing halfway through and it just becoming a completely different film altogether just made me, like you say, want to just keep on watching, because I loved the characters. I loved like how smart they were and how no one was really evil in the film. Everyone was just trying to better themselves, but
yeah, they were never played like villains. There was no, even though they do some pretty bad things. There was
poor
never
or rich. No one
poor or rich. It was about class division and just like and survival. I suppose the thing is, like, a parasite lives in harmony with its host, doesn't it? It tries not to be noticed. That's why it survives. Because it doesn't. It can live more or less undetected. So I suppose it was that kind of thing. Is like we have to human beings are very parasitical because they sort of feed off each other, but you learn to live in some sort of harmony.
Exactly.
But the whole thing, I mean, it's like all the best movies. It's it's kind of sold as one thing, but it's actually about something else. And it's totally about class. It was like about the class divide, and you see that from even the fact that our family lives in like literally below the ground.
Yeah.
Like in the thing where the rainwater seeps in, like they can't possibly get any lower. It's like it's all done, and then obviously the house of the rich family is kind of like on a high hill with like beautiful glass windows around.
Happy about the rain, saying that it's going to make the grass more fervent and green, whereas the poor people's houses are being destroyed. It's like so evident the class difference, and it's so good.
It's not subtle. I mean, that's the thing that was what was great about it, was even though the metaphors aren't subtle at all, it's still. You can still interpret it in different ways, and it probably means like all those great movies, like it means something different to everyone. It's great. What a great film. Yeah,
highly recommend. And of course, this won Best Picture at the Oscars, narrowly beating
what a cinema experience this was.
Oh yeah, mind-blowing. I saw this on IMAX and I thought it was the best decision I've ever made.
Just from the very first shot, I was like, oh, this camera is going to keep moving. It's going to keep moving. This is amazing. It's not stopped yet. This is all one take. And then obviously, there's, several long takes knitted together to make it look like it's done in one take.
Yeah.
But it's still an amazing feat of cinematography. There's only one scene I want to talk about in this because it's it's not a particularly clever film. Like it's a good enough script and like well enough not some nuts and bolts. It's well enough acted. It's good enough performances all round. Good cast. But it's a very visual experience. I think it reminded me of Gravity in that way. It's like it's a movie that should really be seen on the big screen with your Atmos sound and everything. However, there's one scene in it that for me is just absolutely brilliant. Is where our main character gets knocked out in a sort of a sort of Saving Private Ryan style like bell tower, and he comes to. He sort of slept into the night, and he comes to, and he goes down the stairs and out into the battlefield, and he starts getting shot at by like French snipers. By German snipers, and the music swells, and the flares go up in the air to try and identify
everything.
Illuminate the thing, and it turns from there into a sort of almost like Apocalypse Now style surreal, colourful, crazy landscape where anything could happen. It becomes like a living nightmare, and the music just is like something like the Lord of the Rings or something. Like it's just amazing, and I just remember thinking, this is great the way it transitions from this kind of like more traditional war movie into something surreal and strange, and the score is just amazing. I absolutely love it. I've been listening to that ever since I saw the movie, just playing it most days. It was funny actually. This is the only movie I think that I've ever seen where I've deliberately not watched any features on it.
Really?
I've never watched any special features or I don't want to know how it's done. I really don't. It's such a brilliant magic trick.
You'd like the magic to be preserved, yeah. Yeah, it wasn't even like sold to me on the basis of this is going to be a camera trick film, and like this is all going to be one shot. And like I felt like
you didn't really know. You didn't know.
No, not at all. I just
brilliant.
I saw the trailer, saw it was Sam Mendes' new film, and I'm a big Sam Mendes fan, despite Spectre. And the fact is that like I felt like this was going to be a spectacle in itself, and this was going to be an event, like a cinematic event, to see it. And just that one shot where like the main lad is running across the battlefield towards the camera, with everyone just running past him, like from right to left, was so unique of a shot. Like it sold me on the experience just from that alone, and I was like, I need to see this film regardless of what this is about or what happens in it or how it's shot. And yeah, I was not disappointed at all. I mean, like when the Best Picture nominee was made and it was like down to Parasite or 1917, I was like, I win either way. I'm hoping Parasite wins, but 1917 is just as much a worthy winner. So that's where our similarities end, and now we're going to be talking about our fifth favourite film of the year. You go first, Matt. Your fifth favourite film is?
So yeah, this is. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, any Tom Hanks film is always good. I can watch him read the phone book, but one of the main reasons I love this movie so much is sentimental value, in that it was actually the last film that I saw in the cinema with my wife before the pandemic hit. And it was a special day. We planned this day together. We were going to go out for a meal, then we were going to go to the cinema afterwards and have a nice evening together. So it was like a very nice day anyway. The movie was incredibly moving. It's essentially about this journalist who's sent to interview the Mr. Rogers, who was this sort of it was almost like an American national treasure, like children's TV host, who does this kind of like sort of kids TV program with puppets and music that really wasn't known here at all, like in England, but was
we had Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, and maybe Matthew Kelly or Gordon from Rainbow.
God,
was it Jeffrey from Rainbow? Sorry.
When you say it like that, Jesus Christ! Like we got what a terrible roster.
Yeah, God.
But in terms of their professions, yes, those are they're the sort of most direct equivalents. Yeah, probably Rolf Harris, I guess. But anyway, Mr. Rogers clean rap sheet so far, so he's all good. But yeah, and it was just a kind of a sentimental, heartwarming drama, really, about a sort of a cynical journalist who meets Mr. Rogers and actually kind of has a bit of a change of heart, lifestyle, and perspective on the world, because Mr. Rogers is like relentlessly happy. But the element I liked about it was that he does have this sort of relentlessly happy facade, but he says, I still have my moments of anger and frustration and fear and stuff, but I hit the lowest keys on a piano in order to get them out. And so yeah, it's a very sweet and frothy kind of film, really. At its heart, with lots of sentimentality, but really well acted. Tom Hanks is brilliant.
Oh, he's brilliant in everything, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. But as I said, it's a very sentimental movie for me because it was the last movie I saw in 2020 before lockdown. So little did we know it was our last taste of cinema freedom.
So thanks for that, Matt. And my last one is going to be... Now, on one hand, this is a film about a kid in the Hitler Youth whose imaginary best friend is Adolf Hitler, played by the director Taika Waititi. But on the other hand, it is a really heartwarming film about overcoming adversity that society places between you and other people, and how you can fight back against what you're told. And I feel like the film really encapsulated that really well. The kid actors are all brilliantly cast and act much more mature than you'd imagine, especially Jojo's best friend, who reminded me of Russell from Up. I can't remember the character's name, but he really steals the show. Like, in one scene, he has a rocket launcher that he accidentally fires backwards. It's hilarious. Like, why are these kids carrying rocket launchers? It's such a farce. But, like, on one hand, you have the farcical side of that, but then on the other hand, you have Scarlett Johansson playing her role as Jojo's mother, who's part of the French resistance, or the German resistance against Hitler. She played the role really well and was used to great effect. She brought light and sunshine in one moment. She resulted in the film's darkest moment as well. And she managed to do both parts really, really well. And I was actually surprised that she was such a impressive dramatic actress. I still haven't seen Marriage Story, but I've heard that she really shines in that, and I can't wait to see more dramatic roles from her if this is to be the case.
So I've not seen Jojo Rabbit. I don't think I'm as big a Taika Waititi fan as you are. I find his shtick a little bit annoying. It works sometimes. Like, I really enjoyed Thor Ragnarok, which he directed and I guess wrote. I don't know. Did he write some? I don't know.
Yeah, he wrote, starred in, directed. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was great. In terms of it, especially it being a Marvel thing, and right from the first line is like, know what you're thinking. Oh no, Thor's stuck in a bag. I thought that whole thing. I like that kind of vibe, but I think that I don't know. For me, it's not. I don't know, because I love silly and stupid things, and I'm not like. I just there was something about when you sort of watch a movie and you think this is the shtick of this movie, this is what this movie is going to do for the next hour and a half.
Yeah.
And if you're not fully on board, then you're kind of like, ugh, this is going to grate on me a bit. I feel that way a bit about his films. I've not seen Hunt for the Wilder People. I think that was one of his. Was that his first movie?
That wasn't his first. That was one of his most recent, kind of independent ones that he did back in New Zealand with Sam Neill.
That's been recommended to me. I've been saying
really
you need
wholesome,
to watch that.
Lovely film. Which films of his annoy you? Or...
I think I've seen. Is it What We Do in the Shadows? Is that one of his movies? Yeah, and again, it's not. I don't want to be too negative about it. It's just that I don't think I can just tell that I'm not quite as wild about his movies. I do enjoy them, but yeah, I'm not. It's a bit like Wes Anderson. I'm still a little bit on the fence about him.
That's fair.
I like one or two of his films. I don't really love all of them. I like...
it's preferred taste. I get it.
Yeah. It's the sort of a quirkiness that...
Yeah, that's what I like. I mean, have you ever seen Eagle versus Shark that he did?
Yeah.
Were you a big fan of that? Or?
Yeah, I liked that one, actually. And that was kind of coming off the back of Flight of the Conchords as well.
Yeah.
When I saw that. And so for having Jermaine in it, Clement, I just thought was, great.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm just not wild about it. I'm just not completely wild. But however, I've not seen Jojo Rabbit, and I've wanted to watch it ever since it came out, just because I thought as well, this content as well and the setting of it is so daring, and it must be doing something interesting for it to deserve that kind of risky setting and to sort of make it pay off. So
no, definitely.
Yeah, I'd like to see what it's got to offer.
Taika Waititi's been a recent favourite of mine. I feel like he's had a recent string of really good and I don't know, memorable films. I'd say they always stick in my mind, and I always want to rewatch them, which I find is a good sign. Like back when he was making Eagle versus Shark in New Zealand, I found that was so unique and I don't know, an interesting take on a romance film that I was like, okay, this guy's one to look out for. And he's kind of brought his madcap energy that was in Thor Ragnarok and his desire to push boundaries into this film, which easily could have been an absolute mistake. I find you're on a knife edge when you're talking about this kind of subject matter. And like it could have even like turned into an offensive one, but I feel like it handles the subject matter with reverence and respect, so much so that like you don't mind the jokes that are in it, because it's, you know, it's the idea of like everything can be made fun of.
Yeah. Oh, well, I certainly believe that, and I'm not precious about, you know, like setting things in sort of, you know, times like that, you know, or like, you know, in the sort of with the Nazi sort of backdrop. It's just that I guess, you know, when someone does do that, like Mel Brooks doing, you know, Springtime for Hitler and The Producers, and
of course,
you know, what have you, you think this better be good. If you're gonna set something here, it was kind of I didn't really love as much as I'm a huge Chris Morris fan, like Brass Eye and Jam and stuff. I didn't really think that Four Lions handled its subject material very well. I just didn't think it was really. No, I wasn't a big fan of that, and it wasn't that I thought it was offensive or anything, you know, stupid like that. No. It's just that I just didn't think it was funny enough. I didn't think it quite, you know, kind of handled it well enough. I didn't come away thinking, they really showed them. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like, whereas with The Producers, even, you know, things like that, you know, and, you know, other movies that are set in like, that sort of deal with extremism and stuff, you know, I come away going, you know, that was a good enough satire, you know, in like making fun. So did you feel that coming away from Eagle versus Shark that they kind of did it justice?
Jojo Rabbit, you mean?
What did I say?
Eagle versus Shark. It doesn't. Eagle versus Shark doesn't cover topics such as those. But
like the Nazis.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I know Jojo Sharks Rabbit is bad, but them's are worse.
No, I felt like Jojo Rabbit. A lot of people, well, not a lot. A few critics have said that it doesn't hit the topic hard enough, and it should do more to try and highlight the strain of the time and the horribleness that was, you know, Nazi Germany at the time. But I feel like that doesn't necessarily need to be the case when you're trying to make a comedy about kids in the Hitler Youth and like one finding out that the Jewish people aren't the monsters that they's taught to be. And if you want to give Jojo Rabbit a shot, I'll give a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood a shot, and we'll see what we each think. How about that?
Yeah, good idea.
So that's all from Matt and myself today, so thank you for joining us. Let us know in the comments below what your favourite films have been this year, whether it be Christopher Nolan's Tenet, Sonic the Hedgehog, or God forbid, Cats. I don't know how, but more power to you. If you'd like to...
God.
If you'd like to hear more from us, hit that subscribe button and be sure to like this video. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter by searching for the name Matt and Mike Pull Focus. Say Happy New Year, Matt.
Happy New Year, Matt.
And that's Happy New Year from me too. Goodbye.